Hi, I'm Dave Jones. I'm a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association, as well as an advocate for the Alzheimer's Impact Movement. And today I'm going to be interviewing 3 riders for the upcoming Ride to End Alzheimer's. That's part of the Mass New Hampshire chapter. Just a little background, the ride started by the Noonan family in 1996 to further our research in ending this pretty devastating disease. To date, the ride has generated $7.5 million for research into ending Alzheimer's. Also, the URL, if you want to participate in this ride, and we surely will want people to ride along with us, the URL is ridetoendalzheimers.org. I'll also have it, on the lower third as well as the end. What we're going to do is I'm going to just go around Robin and give these people a chance to talk about the ride and their story, if they'd like to tell you about dealing with maybe someone that has Alzheimer's or someone's passed away with Alzheimer's, and we'll take it from there. Go on with Megan, if you could.
Oh, great. Thank you.
You're up.
Okay. So my name is Maegen McCaffrey, and I am from Clinton, Massachusetts, and this is my 7th ride.
Wow. Now, do you have any connection with someone with the disease, or a caregiver, or any kind of thing? Or
unfortunately, I do. So I started participating in this ride 7 years ago when my Aunt Julie passed away. She was my mother's sister, and my cousin Maureen Comito had been riding for a couple years. She had Alzheimer's, and it was early onset, and she put up a really a heroic battle for many, many years. And so my cousin was very involved as she was starting to decline. And she had asked me for several years if I would ride with her. And I said, I'll do it next year. I'll do it next year. I'll do it next year. And I never did. And the year that my aunt passed away, I told her that I would. And so she passed in March, and I went out and I bought a bike. And I'm not a bike rider. I know that there are a lot of people that are involved in this ride that are they ride 100 miles, and that is just not anything I'm ever going to do. But I do the 30 miles. And so I said, you know what, I'll go out, I'll get a bike, and I will I'll give it a try. And so I did some training, and, I did the 30 miles, and it was an incredible experience. I was unprepared for how emotional and how moving of an experience it would be to see all the people there at the park with pictures on their jerseys and their bikes. I ride for mom, I ride for dad, I ride for my husband or my wife. And it was difficult, but it was beautiful at the same time, because everyone was coming together for this, wonderful cause to find, patient zero. And it was such a moving experience. And I committed that I would continue to do it. And so a couple of years later, we recruited a few more cousins, and we've been now, like I said, this is my 7th year. About 6 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with dementia, and now he is in a nursing home. My mom was his caregiver for the last 5 years, and it was really, really difficult. It was devastating to watch his decline. And he had to go into a nursing home. My mom, being a caregiver during COVID was difficult to watch and to be a part of, because you're so isolated, especially in the beginning before people were vaccinated. People were so afraid, especially with what happened in the nursing homes in the beginning. It was a difficult experience, and it's very isolating to begin with to be a caregiver, and then to be a caregiver during the pandemic, which was an isolating time as well. It was difficult, and I know how difficult it's been for a lot of caregivers. So I was there to watch it firsthand and to try to, assist her at, with his care, as much as I could. It was a tough couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Now you said you have a team. You're on a team, right?
I actually am I head up my team, or I chair my team. Our team's name is A Ride Down Memory Lane. There is 12 of us. 8 of them are family, cousins, husbands, all family members. And so we are far and wide. We go as far as Utah. We have a couple people that'll be riding virtual. My cousin and his wife will be riding in Utah. We have a couple riding in Worcester. I'm in Clinton. We have folks all over Massachusetts and New Hampshire. So yeah, and then some good friends of my cousins, friends of the family are also participating. My closest, oldest friend, her grandmother had Alzheimer's. She's going to ride with us. So it's a great team, and it's special that we have that team, that we all know each other and love each other, and that we're all supporting this cause.
It sounds like it's really grown from when you first, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You get more people involved, which is great. I mean, the more awareness, the better.
It's special. It really is. And it's an opportunity to spread awareness. And, obviously the fundraising is so important, but just the awareness as well. It's a great opportunity to tell people why you're doing it, and all the wonderful work that the association does, and the resources that are available to caregivers and everything else. So it's a good opportunity all the way around.
Wow, cool. Now, did you have some graphics you wanted to, earlier on, the photos and whatnot you wanted to show, or no?
Sure, I'll share. I have a couple photos. I'll just share them real quickly. A couple photos of my dad. Let's see. Here's a picture of my dad with my mom. From a trip that we took up in Maine a couple years ago, a picture that I really, really love. And I'll share one other that I really love. Here's one of my dad with my son. And so my dad's name is, his middle name is Campbell. It's Peter Campbell Cotton. And this is my son, Campbell, who was born on his birthday. So they both share May 11th. And so that's my dad with my first son, with my son, Campbell.
Wow. That's great. Thanks. Thanks. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you is if you started fairly recently. If anyone else wanted to get in, no big deal, right? I mean, you found you got a bike and you started riding, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Right?
Yep. And we have people on our team that ride 100 miles, and we have people on our team that ride 60 and 30. And for those of us that ride 30, we're not in it to break any speed records. We're just in it to finish.
Finish.
Yeah, and for me, that's part of it. We're in it to obviously it's a wonderful day to participate, but I'm not going to break any speed records. I'm not ever going to be a diehard bike rider. I do it for the ride. I do it for the Alzheimer's Association. And, it's also a good excuse to start exercising in the spring, but I don't do it for the bike ride. I do it for the mission.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Andrew, you're up.
Yeah, my name is Andy Clark. God, I was trying to think of how many rides I've done at this point. I think it's about 8.
Okay.
My story stems from my father, like Maegen, or part of Megan's story, I guess, unfortunately, with so many connections there. But mine was really my father, who was a avid biker. In fact, I'll do the screen sharing thing as well. I think it kind of helps tell the story, so to speak, as I'm going through this. But so hopefully Is this
There you
sharing?
go.
Yeah.
Yep.
So is that up with my dad? Is that me? Even I'm not seeing it on the.
I can see it here.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
yep.
this is my dad. Unfortunately, this was in the midst of dementia, and so for me, when you hear people say, it robs you, it really does. It was devastating to me to see a guy who was so verbal and so engaged to then just be almost clammed up. And so for me, um, I wanted to do something. His kind of motto was, if it is to be, it is up to me. It was a famous thing he said. And so for me, doing something to combat this became an absolute, must. It was a way to release energy, from, quite honestly, the anger that, you kind of feel with this. It was a way to honor him. And it was a way to raise money for something. I have been a big biker for a while. It started with my dad, going way back, and I still have a bike he gave me from high school, that I converted into a single speed because I couldn't bear to give it up. But I've done a lot of riding, and I had been doing rides for other fundraiser, but didn't have a personal connection. And so when my father became afflicted with dementia and I saw a decline, I found out about the ride, and latched on when it was in Central Mass, and then as it's moved along, and now along the coast and up through New Hampshire and down through areas. So I created a team called Doing It for Our Folks, and every year I ride with a picture. Like Megan said, it blew me away. My first ride, seeing all the people who had pictures of parents or loved ones, and as well as people along the ride route who would have pictures up and, just be saying thank you. And, you could tell it meant a lot to them. So I put a picture up, and it's by far not unique on my jersey, just to remember. I also, of all the people who donate, if they have a loved one, who was affected, I write their names down I won't call it a handkerchief, but on a a towel, essentially, that I carry with me, and also to honor them. So just a little way that I found the ride to be so personal. There are a lot of great fundraising rides, but going out on this ride and seeing the energy behind it, it may not have as many people yet as other rides, but it certainly has a lot of feel and affection that you can just feel throughout the ride. So this was the team last year. We were virtual last year. We're going back in person this year, which will be fun, but it gave me a chance to get a lot of friends locally on the South Shore, where I used to live. I moved up to New Hampshire, and I'm trying to recreate that with folks around here. But this was the team from last year. This is me, and one of the banners that the ride director, the for sale signs, for lack of a better word, and I loved it. To honor, remember, care, and fight. That kind of embodies everything the ride means to me. And so I've kind of stolen this sign. I'm not sure I'm going to give it back because I like to bring it out every year. And then this past year, let's see, I got my daughter to ride, who had just started riding. And to Megan's point, everyone can do whatever ride distance they do. My daughter did slightly less than us, but still trooped it out. And then, whenever I do the ride, I bring up a picture of my dad, and kind of tell the story of him, and to everyone who's there, either riding with me or who has donated, and just trying to show why it's so personal to me. And it's just been a great experience, and a great way to try and combat this awful disease. You hear so many people say that, and anyone who's experienced, it's, everyone nods their head to that one. It's just awful. And so this is a nice way for me to to try and fight it and do my part and, honor my father and what he would have done, and had done for other charities that were near and dear to his heart. So, now this one's near and dear to my heart, and the reason I ride, joyfully, sometimes painfully, getting through that 100 miles, but happy to do it given what it does and the people that help with it and contribute to it. So can't say enough about doing it, and hope more people will join either my team or Megan's team or Dan's or on your own. But it's a great ride and a lot of fun and very personal.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
What was the name of the team you guys called it?
It's called Doing It for Our Folks.
Doing It, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the initial guys who joined me, or guy that joined me, his mother had it. So I started with doing it for my dad, and then it just became logical to, doing it for our folks. So yeah, that's the name. I think it's about 7 years for that, and about 8 years that I've ridden.
Wow. Thanks.
Yeah. Welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
Sure. Dan, you're up.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, good. All right. So I'm an individual rider. This year will be my 6th ride altogether. I did miss one, but that was the year of the pandemic when there was no ride whatsoever. And last year did a virtual ride. So I ride in honor of my mother. She lost her fight against Alzheimer's in 2015 on June 20th. It was a heartbreaking thing to watch. She was a very vibrant woman and very involved, an avid reader, and just to watch everything kind of fade away from her was just, I would never wish Alzheimer's on my worst enemy or anybody. It's just a terrible thing to witness. And I think we all know that as individuals that are riding in this ride. My favorite ride would be a ride where we don't have to do this anymore. When we don't have to put the jerseys on and we don't have to get on our bikes and we don't have to raise money because we've defeated Alzheimer's. That would be my favorite ride. Hopefully that day comes soon. 2017, I think, was my first ride. I'm trying to remember, but I was immediately addicted to the ride itself because the rest stops were incredible, the atmosphere, the after party, the camaraderie of people. It was just a great experience, and people sharing stories. And I look forward to this ride every year. My sister comes out from Indiana, and then my wife and my 2 children follow along in a car, and they drive the route, but they're well ahead of me, of course, and they meet me at each rest stop and cheer me on, and it's fun. But I get very excited when the jerseys arrive in the mail and the gloves and the socks, and it's an honor to wear it, but I wish I never had to.
Yeah. Do you do the 100 or how many miles?
I do the 100. I do the 100.
Wow. I don't think I'm ready for that yet. Do you have any stuff you want to share? Any photos or whatnot?
I underprepared. Sorry.
That's okay.
Trying to get my 2 kids to bed.
I hear you. Actually, I didn't tell you my story. My story is my mother-in-law suffered with the disease for almost over 10 years. And I met my wife in high school in the same town I grew up in. So she was like a second mother to me. It was pretty intense, to put it mildly. It was one of these things where the both of them are in the house alone, and they can't care. He could not care for her, and it was pretty. I mean, you all know what I'm talking about. But she had it for a while. It was tough going, and unfortunately, we just learned about 3 or 4 months ago that my brother-in-law has early onset Alzheimer's, and you know what you know, and it's been a struggle to kind of, because now here's someone who's very close to my age, and has a disease, and now it's a disease. Having gone through it with my mother-in-law, we're kind of struggling with that now. So yeah, I'm with you. We want the ride where we don't have to ride. I mean, that's exactly it, exactly the point. But anything else you want to add? Thoughts?
Hearing Dan talk about the stops, when I first did the ride, I'd been on rides, and I'm used to putting down your bike and getting some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or whatever.
Yeah.
And this person approached me, clearly a volunteer, and I didn't know what they were doing, right? But she came up to me, and she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and she, I said, is it hello? And she's like, can I hold your bike? And I was like, oh, what do you mean? And she said, well, we'll hold your bike while you go get some drink. And I'd never had that happen at any ride, fundraiser. And it's just because there are so many volunteers that they want to do something. So, they would come and hold your bike. And I was blown away by that. And, it speaks to what Megan and Dan said. It just, getting out on this ride, you feel it, you feel the energy, and the people are just so committed. And unfortunately, they all have stories like us, and you're just there, and you listen to that on a pit stop while someone's holding your bike, and you realize, there are a lot of people that want this thing to end. So I forgot about that story, but Dan reminded me, and it's just a tribute to the type of people who come out at these pit stops, and take the time, not just the riders, but the people coming out to support the ride.
Yeah, that reminds me of, my first year when I did the ride. I know the rest stops every year are themed, but I distinctly remember my first year, the first rest stop on the 100-mile route was being run by people with Alzheimer's or caregivers supporting somebody with Alzheimer's. And that rest stop was just a truly special one. And just to see the impact, and it was very personal. I liked, not that,
Yeah.
I'll add one thing. My first ride, and as I had mentioned, I wasn't prepared for how emotional it would be, but they had asked the person who had raised the most money leading up to the ride to say a few words before we went off. And it just so happened that he was riding for his wife, and his wife passed away like 2 days earlier. And he said, my commitment is still, so strong, even, in the face of her death. He said, this is where I need to be right now. And it was just like, there was not a dry eye in the house. Or in the field. And it was so difficult to listen to, and so emotional. And, everyone was, listening and thinking about their own loved ones, whether they were, currently struggling or had also, were gone too soon. So it is really an impactful ride, from the volunteers that support it, and, everything in between. But I would be remiss just quickly to say, since you said you were going to be editing a little bit, I talked a lot about my, kind of the struggle that my mom had as a caregiver. But, it really has been difficult also to watch someone who was so vibrant and so alive and so full of life and full of humor and life and just so much spirit, someone who would, pick up a guitar and have a big sing along, and someone who was, the first one to go over and shake your hand, if he saw someone who wasn't talking to someone at, at an event or a cookout, or, just the most vivacious person, someone who would do, characters for the kids to try to make them giggle, just to see someone who was so vocal and so fun and, to just see them become quiet and withdrawn and then nonverbal, and just to see all those things just slowly flicker out. It's a difficult thing to see. That person who used to hold court, not saying anything anymore. It was a difficult thing to watch. And, he's still with us, but it's tough. It's a tough thing.
I appreciate you guys doing this. This is great. The more awareness, the better. I think I also mentioned that I'm also involved with the Alzheimer's Impact Movement, which is sort of the political end of and advocating in DC for funding. And we go to the Hill and we talk to our representatives, our senators, and as we're on the Hill, we have these, we're identified as Alzheimer's people. We have an Alzheimer's sash, whatever. And the first couple of times I did the advocating on the Hill, I was totally blown away by complete strangers will come up to you as you're going from office building to office building and tell you their story. Just right off it's just. By the time I get to the senator's office, I'm, like I'm a puddle because, it's just, complete strangers, but the identification of what is people are going through with it, and as a caregiver is just, I wasn't prepared for that, really. I mean, and I'm never really prepared for it as you advocate for find the end of this thing. So.
Well, it impacts everyone.
I hope I see you guys up there in June.
Yeah,
we'll look for you.
Definitely.
I'll be the one really struggling along.
Okay. You and me both.
Yeah, really. All right.
I will.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet all of you. Great.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.